So I want to talk about what an operating agreement actually is, because a lot of LLC owners hear that term and assume it's just paperwork and it's not important. But an operating agreement is the internal rule book of an LLC. And so it's the document that explains how the company works when questions comes up. And so the operating agreement covers things like who owns the company, who gets to make decisions, how profits and losses are divided, and what happens when something changes, because it's inevitable. Something's going to change at some point. And so ownership is just the first piece. And the agreement needs to clearly state who the members are and what percentage each member owns. And without that, state law usually assumes that equal ownership is at play, even if it's not how the business actually operates. And that is not what you want. You don't want the state laying out things for you that doesn't even apply to your business. The next thing we're going to look at is management. The agreement needs to say whether the LLC is member managed or manager managed, and who has the authority to do things like sign contracts, open accounts, make major decisions. This matters when someone acts on behalf of the company and a dispute files, especially if they didn't have what's called agency or the ability to bind the company. Next, we're going to look at profit and loss allocation. That's another key section. It's going to determine when money gets distributed, how those tax items are handled. So many disputes start because owners assume profits will be split one way, but the agreement says something else or says nothing at all, and then the state applies law that doesn't even apply. The agreement also needs to address changes. What happens if a member wants to leave, sell their interest, or even if a member passes away? If this is not addressed, the default state rules apply again, and those rules often create outcomes no one intended for, even that leaving member. And then finally, the operating agreement helps establish that this LLC is a separate legal entity, even for a single member LLC. So having one shows structure and intent, and courts look for that separation when liability issues arise. The operating agreement is not about just having a formality. It's about control of your LLC and keeping that control in-house. If the agreement is silent, the law fills in the gaps. And once that happens, you lose the ability to shape how the business operates when it matters most. So just draft an LLC operating agreement. It is very, very important.